Hello and welcome to the June 2021 Skyguide for Stanion and Northants Astronomy Club. Hopefully this will be the last time I'll be putting it just on YouTube and we can get things back to normal down at the village hall from July. So fingers crossed for that happening next month. So I'll crack on with the Skyguide and good news for astronomy from the 21st of June. The days will start to get shorter because that is when the summer solstice is happening. So days will start getting shorter, nights will start getting longer once again, and then hopefully we'll get to a point where we've got astronomical darkness once again and we can start seeing lots of deep sky objects again. Not that we can't see anything at all at the minute, there's still plenty to see in the night sky if you know where to look, and if you look for the brighter objects, which I will run through now, some of the things that we can see still during the summer months. So first of all, I'll hit on Mercury, which maybe actually be a challenging one because being low in the north-northeast before sunrise at the end of the month and being a mag of plus 1.1 makes Mercury a bit of a tricky spot. It is there above the horizon, but fighting the brightening sky and with that magnitude it might be quite a challenging spot, but it is there if you like to have a look for that planet. Moving on to Venus, it's visible in the northwest after sunset all month long, and being mag minus 3.8 makes it quite a nice bright object to find in the sky. This slide here shows you Venus's position on the 11th of June, and nearby will be a very thin waxing crescent moon, and the day after the moon will be the other side and a bit higher up than Venus, so look out for those on those dates. Staying on subject of Venus for just a few minutes, NASA have recently announced that there's 2 new missions which they're going to be progressing to Venus before 2030. It was announced. The Da Vinci mission will be, I think, dropping down through the clouds of Venus and taking samples of the atmosphere as it does so, and then also taking lots of images of the landscape, and if it survives it will be doing some other science as well, which I haven't read about yet, but I'm sure lots of other details will be forthcoming in the future. And the Veritas mission will also be going to Venus, but this one is going to be an orbital mission, so we're making observations from space of Venus for a good few years, if not more, and again the sort of observations that it will be making will be made more clear later on, so keep an eye out for those 2 missions. Next up is Mars. It's visible in the west-northwest after sunset, but it might be a bit faint to see against the twilight sky. It's mag plus 1.8, and it will be setting as it's getting dark as well, so it's another challenging spot. You can see down here on this screenshot where Venus is located, so if you can see Venus, it might be worth using that as a little pointer towards the red planet as well. If you go up and to the left from Venus, you might be able to see Mars there in the sky. And moving on now to Jupiter. Jupiter rises 5 hours before the Sun by the end of the month, being mag minus 2.5. It's quite a nice bright object in the morning sky, so if you're up and about in the early hours, you'll definitely see Jupiter, and before Jupiter rises you'll see Saturn rising as well. So if you can see Jupiter, a very bright object in the southeast around about 3:30 in the morning, then just look over to the right a little bit and you should be able to make out the dimmer planet Saturn as well. And Jupiter has a few moon events going on as well this month, so as always you can just jump on Stellarium there, zoom in on the gas giant, and then scroll through the days and the times until you see some events pop out at you, like this one here on the left hand side is a double shadow transit, and it also has a moon transiting at the same time as well. I think these are the shadows of Io and Callisto, and I think we also have, I think it's Callisto as well, in transit on the morning of the 12th of June. So this is like 4 o'clock in the morning. You should be able to see the two shadows and maybe the moon as well. No, the moon, Callisto, on top of Jupiter's disk. And then on the, and we're going backwards now, on the 10th of June, about 20 past 3 in the morning, you should just be able to see the moon, Callisto again, exiting the Jupiter's disk. So I've seen some of these events happening, in real time. I've seen them disappearing behind Jupiter, and I've seen them emerging from Jupiter's disk as well. It's a pretty cool thing to watch in real time. Yeah, and even capture some images if you can as well. And if you do manage to capture any of these events, send them in to me, and I can showcase them on the Skyguide for the club. Moving on now to Saturn. Like I said, just before it rises before Jupiter, and by month end it reaches an altitude of 20 degrees when it's due south before the sun rises. So it's getting into a nicer position than it has been over recent years. And I think a couple of years ago it was only reaching about 14 degrees altitude maximum, but now it's on the way back up. So year on year it should start getting a bit higher in the sky. Excuse me, my alarm's going off. There we go. Mag plus 0.4, so it is dimmer than Jupiter, but if you do have trouble spotting it, then you can use Jupiter as like a little pointer towards the ringed gas giant. Moving on now to a couple of deep sky objects which I will highlight to you this month. The first one being M11, the wild duck cluster in the constellation of Aquila, sorry. Being the brightest star of Aquila, makes up the lower star of the summer triangle asterism during the summer months. So you can see here from this diagram where it's located, just off the bottom of that constellation and on the board of Scutum as well. There's a few bright stars in the vicinity which you can use as a pointer, with your finder scope or binoculars. And it is a favourite object of mine to see through the eyepiece of a telescope, because it actually does look like a flying V, if you like. Hence it's named the wild duck cluster. It looks like the V shape that ducks make when they're all flying in formation. You can't really make it out on the image that I took here, but through the eyepiece it really does look like a V shape. So a favourite object of mine to go and see during the summer months. And also another favourite is the Ring Nebula, a relatively easy target to see. You can usually just about make it out in your finder scope, and then through the eyepiece of a telescope it will look like a smoky ring hanging there among the background of stars. This one's quite easy to find as well. One of the upper brightest stars of the summer triangle, which is Vega, which is the brightest star in the constellation of Lyra. And if you just look below that bright star, you should see two pairs of dimmer stars, and then the lower pair of stars, just over halfway between those two, you should be able to make out in your eyepiece or in the finder scope the small deep sky fuzzy object which is the Ring Nebula. Here's an image I took. Being quite a small object, really, it does sort of like get lost in the field of view of my camera setup on my telescope, but it does resolve a little bit of colour. You can see the red fringe in there and a little bit of blue or green in the middle of it, whereas by through the eyepiece it will just appear as a grey smoky ring. I think stronger focal lengths can even sometimes make out the neutron star in the middle from which this nebula originated. Really nice little object to see during the summer. And also we're in the middle of noctilucent cloud season. That runs from sort of late May and into early August. Noctilucent clouds can be seen an hour and a half to 2 hours after sunset in the northwest, or an hour and a half to 2 hours before sunrise in the northeastern sky. This image here was taken by Jonathan David Harty, and he lives in North Wales, and he went up the Great Orme to take this awesome photo from. So they are quite often quite a dynamic thing to observe as well. You can often see them changing over the matter of minutes or the hour or so that they're usually visible for. And some people do make them into a time lapse, and you can see them dancing around, on a time lapse sequence. I think that they're caused by ice crystals which are very high up in the atmosphere, and because the sun is below the horizon, when you do see them, it's the angle at which the light is shining up and hitting these ice crystals and then coming back down to you, the observer. So that's why they're only visible a certain time of the year. And the ice crystals are formed around very small dust particles very high up in the atmosphere, and a lot of people think, scientists think these dust particles do originate from when meteors hit the Earth's atmosphere. So it's actually originated from stardust originally. So really cool things to see. And here's a display that I saw last year whilst I was observing comet Neowise. So you can see Neowise there on the right hand side of this image, and then down to the left of where the comet was, I witnessed a display of noctilucent clouds happening. My image is it's a little bit bright because I had to tease out the detail there due to taking this image from quite a heavily light polluted area. I was very high up, so I could see the horizon down there. But it was quite challenging conditions. But I was really happy to see this display. It was the first proper decent display that I've ever seen, and hopefully I'll get to see some more this year. 10th of June, on Thursday the 10th of June, there is a partial solar eclipse visible from the UK. First contact's going to happen 10:06 in the morning. Maximum coverage will happen at 11:13, when around about 20% of the sun's disk will be covered by the moon. And then last contact, just as the moon leaves the sun's disk, will be happening at 12:24. So if you're up and about and we've got clear skies on that particular morning, make sure you've got some solar safe equipment. Remember, Barda solar film or eclipse sunglasses, or maybe use a pinhole camera, 2 bits of paper or a bit of card and a bit of paper with a pinhole, and you can safely observe the sun in that fashion. Or if you've got a solar scope, I'm going to be using a Hydrogen Alpha dedicated solar scope myself to observe this event at that time of the morning, and I hope lots of you get the chance to do so too. So, and if you do, send in some images if you manage to get some images, or just let me know how you get on seeing the partial solar eclipse. Remember, solar safety first. So here's me. This is we were observing maybe the last solar eclipse, or it might have been one of the transits of Mercury. But this is our solar setup for the day. That's me with my head looking at my computer screen. Solar astronomy sounds like it might be easier, but it's really not, especially if you're using a computer screen and you've got the brightest sun glaring off the computer screen. You can hardly see what you're doing. But it is a really cool thing to do during the daytime, as long as you've got the correct safety equipment first. Of course, like Barda solar film, eclipse glasses, or dedicated solar scope. So make sure you're viewing it very safely. ISS, if you're after the ISS this month, I'm afraid you're not going to be able to see it during June. The next visible passes will be at the beginning of July, so we're not seeing that at all this month. And moving on now to some member images. Here's one of Graham Algio's quite artistic moon shots. He's got a very quite a thin crescent moon here, but he's overexposed it to show the Earth shine, which is the light that bounces off of the Earth, heads back to the moon and comes back to us again. So you can see the fainter part of the moon along with the sunlit portion, which makes up the crescent. And also this type of image, which is taken through thin cloud, brings out the colour of the moon's halo as it's shining its light through the clouds. You can also see a few stars there in the background as well. It makes quite a pleasing shot. and sometimes an astro image of just a bright star makes for quite a decent image. So here's one by John Allen of the star Altair of the constellation Aquila, and you can see it is shining very brightly there against the background of much darker stars, much dimmer stars. Sorry. A very nice shot there from John Allen. And another one of the Omega Nebula, also by John. It's not one I've ever bought myself, and I can't remember what constellation this one's in, but it makes for a very nice image. You can see the hydrogen cloud there, glowing in the night sky as the light's being emitted by the hydrogen atoms within that giant gas cloud. And also another one by John is Saturn as well. So he's been up in the early hours observing the ringed planet, and he's managed to get a very nice image of it too. So you can make out the disk of Saturn along with the rings, and you can see the gaps between the rings and the planet. So yeah, really cool thing to do is get up early in the early hours and watch these gas giants as they're rising into the morning sky. And one here from Dave Booth, just a simple full moon shot. Very, very pleasing thing to do, and something you probably just need a long lens on a DSLR camera to do. You probably don't even need a telescope setup to do this sort of thing. You can get quite a lot of nice detail there. You can see the craters, you can see the big mare on the moon, and yeah, very well done to Dave. This lovely shot. And I'm going to leave you now with this video of the last partial solar eclipse, which happened back in 2015. This is a little video I made of the event. So enjoy, and I shall see you again next month, hopefully. Goodbye.